Story 1. The Castle of Shadows. As an experienced urban explorer, I've visited countless abandoned locations throughout my years of exploration. This particular place, known as the Stone Castle, or Osler Castle, in explorer circles, had only its outer stone walls remaining when I first discovered it. My boyfriend at the time spotted it from a roofing job he was working on near Oromadanta, Ontario. The property was absolutely stunning, perched on a hilltop with a clear view of beautiful countryside. Besides the destroyed main structure, there was still a large barn, a carriage house, and stables toward the back of the property. We drove an hour to explore it that first weekend, and I was determined to investigate every single building thoroughly. In the barn basement, we found clear evidence of satanic rituals that left us horrified. The walls were covered in dark artwork, and we discovered a knife with what appeared to be blood on it, an altar with black candles, and an unsettling bottle. Most disturbing was a makeshift cage built from an old silo with chains inside, clearly designed to hold someone captive. My boyfriend wanted to leave immediately, but I insisted we continue exploring. I was terribly wrong. When we reached the stables at the back of the property, the smell of rotting flesh hit us immediately. The entire building was littered with mutilated animal corpses: dogs, cats, rabbits, coyotes, and foxes. They had been grotesquely mutilated in disturbing ways. My boyfriend grabbed me and said we were leaving right then. This wasn't teenage pranks. This was something far more sinister and dangerous. As we headed back toward the exit, I snuck around to check the carriage house alone before leaving. It was empty, but that decision likely saved our lives that day. When I returned from the carriage house, I saw an adult male with a baseball bat going through our car, apparently searching for something. There were roughly 8 people total in the group, ranging from adults to children as young as 12 or 13. Everyone carried weapons: golf clubs, sticks, canes, and bats. It appeared they'd been waiting for us to leave so they could ambush us. When I yelled at him, my boyfriend came charging over the hill, running directly through their group. His bravery caused them to immediately back off, and some even tried to hide their weapons behind their backs. My boyfriend calmly explained we were just admiring the architecture and leaving. Somehow, they let us get in our car and drive away. They followed us in a black pickup truck with no license plates for approximately 20 minutes. We drove directly to Barrie, Ontario, where we filed a police report with a noticeably shaken officer. My boyfriend never returned to that roofing job again. I wanted to return with investigators, but after telling people what happened, nobody would accompany me. My ex and I continued exploring other abandoned sites, but we both started carrying knives for protection. To any urban explorers out there, please be extremely careful. You never know what darkness you might encounter in these forgotten places. Story 2. The Driving Lesson. When I was 15 years old, in 1994, I attended high school in Orinda, California. To graduate, we had to complete 8 hours of supervised driving with professional instructors. My mother scheduled multiple 1-hour sessions with Safeway Driving School, a company that would pick up students from their homes. I was annoyed about it because I'd already been secretly driving all year while my mother worked night shifts at her job. I couldn't tell her that, so I reluctantly attended the scheduled lessons. The instructor who showed up immediately struck me as creepy and overweight. My teenage fantasy of having an attractive instructor was thoroughly crushed, but I went along with it. He explained that the passenger side had a brake pedal for safety purposes in case of emergency. I bragged that we wouldn't need it because I was an excellent driver. He laughed and made a comment that went completely over my naive head at the time. Something about me being good at other things too. I actually preened at what I thought was a compliment. Within 5 minutes, he realized I truly didn't need lessons at all. He suggested that since we still had to log the time, we should just go to dinner. I excitedly agreed, completely oblivious to the danger developing around me. We went to McDonald's, where he constantly complimented my appearance and my swimmer's body. That's when it finally clicked that his behavior was inappropriate. After eating, I wanted to go home, and he agreed it was time. The next day, he picked me up again and gave me an old-looking necklace as a gift. He then instructed me to drive and follow his directions carefully. He took me onto the freeway, completely against regulations, and through the Aldecott Tunnel into Berkeley, far exceeding the 10-mile restriction. Then he directed me up Grizzly Peak in the hills, where the roads are extremely curvy and deserted. That's when things became genuinely terrifying. He slowed the car in this isolated location and placed his hands on my thigh, gradually moving them higher. I finally understood the danger I was in, so I slammed on the accelerator hard. Even with him braking, the car moved forward. I told him to stop touching me, or I'd deliberately crash into oncoming traffic on the blind turns. I actually started swerving toward the wrong lane, and he immediately backed off, laughing nervously. I drove home in furious silence while he tried to make everything seem like a joke. As soon as I arrived, I ran inside and told my mother everything. She immediately called Safeway, and he was fired. He apparently had other complaints against him. 2 months later, my best friend started her driving lessons. While waiting for her driver to arrive, we were on her roof by the pool when the car pulled into her driveway. The driver was the same man. I quickly yelled down, "Hey, asshole! I know you! Cops are coming! Run, freak!" He saw me and immediately drove away. My friend couldn't hear me from 3 stories down, so my shouting was crucial in preventing disaster. We called the police, and they arrived to take our statement. Another Safeway car pulled up with her actual instructor. This driver explained the creep had been fired when I complained, but someone had stolen a company car. They hadn't connected the incidents until now. He was found in the stolen car and arrested. Inside were a knife, rope, and most disturbing, photographs of me and my friends. He still had access to school appointment logs and was planning unspeakable things. If I hadn't been there, things would have ended very differently. He'd used a fake identity and was wanted in another state for assault. Story 3. The Window Watcher. I'm Irish and was studying in the UK for my degree. Where I lived, landlords renting to students would convert the front downstairs room into a bedroom. This was my room during my first year. Having the front door directly in my room was awkward, with just a small section separating it from the street outside. After living there several months, I could distinguish between someone walking past and someone approaching the door. One night around 1 in the morning, both housemates were away. I was video chatting with my long-distance boyfriend when I heard footsteps right outside my door. The person shuffled around, then started fumbling with the handle. This alarmed me. I told my boyfriend I'd look out the window. I got up, parted the curtains, and pressed my face against the glass. Since it was pitch black and the streetlights were off, it took a moment to understand what I was seeing. Someone was standing directly outside, pressed against the window, staring right at me. Inches separated our faces. He appeared male, wearing a hoodie, but I couldn't make out his features. I didn't scream. I felt like all air had been knocked from my lungs. It felt like being plunged into freezing water. When he realized I could see him, he ran. I told my boyfriend and called the police. They arrived eventually and conducted a quick patrol, but nothing came of it. This remains one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. I still can't understand why he tried to break in. I had my light on, which would have been visible through the curtains, so he probably wasn't homeless. Perhaps he'd been watching me and my housemates, thinking 3 young women alone represented an easy burglary target. I couldn't sleep for days. I stayed awake until early morning watching movies to feel less alone, then fell asleep from exhaustion as sunlight appeared. Being far from home without family nearby, that weekend waiting for my housemates to return felt impossibly long. I've developed a phobia about looking out windows when it's dark. That experience changed something fundamental in me. Story 4. The Creepy Regular. In 2013, I worked at a local garden center near a country village. The job was casual retail work with decent pay, walking distance from home. The regular customers were mostly lovely elderly people. We'd gotten to know many of them so well we gave some nicknames. Pink Hair Lady was an 80-year-old badass with bright pink hair and a tassel leather jacket. But one regular customer gave all the young female employees uncomfortable vibes. He was in his late 40s, wore a straw hat and gold-rimmed glasses, and strange graphic shirts with inappropriate slogans. He always wore ripped jeans, perpetually stained with paint or mud. He had a disturbing half-smile and leering expression that made everyone uneasy. He constantly cleaned his glasses, clearly trying to get better views of younger staff. One sweltering summer afternoon, I gratefully accepted watering the hanging baskets outside, away from the humid greenhouse. I wore black shorts and my red polo with my tool belt. I was enjoying the solitary work when he suddenly appeared from behind some wooden trellises. He looked me up and down with his disturbing smile, his eyes lingering on my body. I asked if he needed anything. He just shook his head while smirking at my legs. I tried to continue working, but he said I was new. I explained I'd been there 8 months. He complimented my tan and said I looked young. I told him I was 23 and needed to get back to work. He introduced himself, and I realized he'd read my name badge. Irritated that he now knew my name, I made an excuse to grab supplies. By the time I returned, he had left. Over the following weeks, he came in regularly, around when I started my shift. He'd make tiny, pointless purchases, florist wire, a small bag of birdseed, just to interact with me. He made constant comments about my appearance, always announcing my name loudly and deliberately. I felt uncomfortable, but just tried to ignore it. Around Christmas, while decorating artificial trees at the back of the store, he jumped out from behind one, startling me so badly, I dropped and broke a glass ornament. When he bent down to help, he grabbed my wrists forcefully, his grip uncomfortably tight and his hands clammy. I jerked my hand away and asked if I could help him with anything. That's when things escalated. He pulled out a leaflet and told me he was an artist with a Christmas art show at the local church hall. He wanted me to attend with him. I'd never indicated interest in art to him. When I offered to post the leaflet on the community board, he touched my arm and said the invitation was specifically for me. He jabbed his finger directly into my chest as he said, "You." I found myself cornered in a dark area by Christmas trees, being touched by this disturbing man. I cringed away and said I was busy with my boyfriend that day, then quickly left. My colleagues promised to warn me whenever he visited, so I could hide in the stockroom. One day, a temporary staff member told me my friend was asking for me at the checkout. Thinking it might be my ex's mother, I went to the tills. There he was, holding a piece of paper. He asked me to open it. Inside was a drawing of me, with grotesquely exaggerated breasts in a sexual position, watering hanging baskets. I thanked him, but said I couldn't accept it as it was inappropriate. I handed it back. He stared at me with an angry expression and walked out. I'd had enough. I knocked on my manager's door and explained everything that had happened over the past year. He reviewed the CCTV footage and confirmed the behavior was extremely strange. The next day, my boss called me at home. He'd received an anonymous complaint claiming I'd been inappropriate with a customer, offered him sex, and was promiscuous. This creep had fabricated an entirely fictitious relationship between us, claiming I'd been pursuing him for over a year while cheating on my boyfriend. Fortunately, my manager had already informed his superiors about this man, so they didn't believe the false accusation. However, they suggested I report to police, which I did the next day. The officer said this man matched the description of a known local predator who frequently harassed young women. He was also known to stalk girls in his vehicle and had allegedly attempted to abduct a young woman 4 years earlier. The officer assured me they would file an official report and confront him directly. He was banned from the garden center and anywhere near me. Despite this warning, he later sent an angry letter to my workplace claiming I would regret not taking him back. The police viewed this as unsolicited contact that violated the order. He was arrested. Story 5. The Mall Manager's Stalker. I worked as a marketing manager at a shopping mall years ago. My job was highly visible in my community, primarily hosting events like fashion shows and music concerts. I was well known around town. I had a close group of friends from high school. When I was 29, married for 4 years with a newborn son, my friend Chrissy had just ended her second marriage. It was a running joke that she moved from one husband directly to the next. She'd now begun dating a new man named Jake and wanted us to meet him. There was barely a month between her leaving husband number 2 and moving in with Jake. The meeting went smoothly. We all privately agreed it probably wouldn't last. Jake was considerably older, recently divorced with an intrusive ex. About 3 weeks after meeting him, Chrissy announced she was pregnant. One morning at work, I found a large bouquet of roses and a teddy bear on my desk. I received flowers regularly from suppliers, so that wasn't unusual. The teddy bear was unexpected. I've never been a teddy bear kind of woman. A small card simply read, "I can't wait to see you again." I asked my secretary where they came from, but she had no idea. They'd been delivered to security before anyone arrived. Then the phone calls started, directly to my office line, bypassing reception. Only a handful of people knew this number. First came silent calls with heavy breathing. After several days, he began speaking. His messages were disturbing. "I'm watching you. I like your skirt. You're beautiful. I wish you were my girlfriend." His voice was deep and gravelly, clearly forced lower than normal. After a week of daily calls, I went to my boss, who had the number changed immediately. The calls stopped. About a month later, we hosted a gathering at my house, and Chrissy and Jake attended. As soon as Jake walked through the door, I froze. When he spoke, I instantly knew he was the caller. Chrissy was very pregnant, and I didn't want to upset her, so I never told her. I never confronted him either. He apologized for creeping me out, claiming he hadn't meant to, and left early that day. They moved to another town a few months later and got married. I was invited, but declined to attend. The marriage lasted exactly 1 year. Chrissy has since become engaged again. Jake has been married 3 times since their divorce. I didn't tell Chrissy about the calls until several years later. She said she understood my not telling her at the time and admitted she probably wouldn't have believed me anyway. He must have gotten my number from her address book. Apparently, he did something similar to another woman at their church after they moved. These stories haunt me. Whether in abandoned buildings, our cars, through windows, at workplaces, or through people we trust.